Welcome back into the final extra point of the year. I'm Jim Funderburg along with Kevin Klein. And gosh, Kevin, you know, it just doesn't seem it. We said it and said it and said it, and those 10 weeks go so fast. That's why it's so much fun to have 11 and 12 and 13 at times.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, we kind of got spoiled with that in the last couple of years, and now we're on the flip side of that. We kind of know what it's like to put our equipment away, and
yeah.
You know, at this point in time, we're just kind of getting over the season. You guys are moving on to basketball and everything else, and so. You know, didn't end the way we wanted it to, but you know, still overall, you know, I think this group did a pretty solid job this year.
I think they did too. That night, for anybody that wasn't there, we got lucky enough to be in the press box this year. How's that? But I can't remember in all the years, and that's been a long time that I've been around football games, a night that was that miserable. And the way the wind was blowing, it was blowing right in your face all night long. Not on the field that way, but right into the guy standing on the sideline. It looked like it was what a horrible Friday night.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Horrible Friday.
You know, we played in a couple of games. I've coached in a couple of games that have been like that, but not too many. And it just seemed like as the game wore on, at first I thought that field was in pretty good shape, but as the game wore on, and even through our pregame stuff, you know, it started getting pretty soupy out there. And I think you saw that. You know, we had a hard time getting traction out there. Not that they didn't, but I think that it suited them a lot more than it did us. They were a lot more downhill runners, and you know, they didn't have a tremendous amount of speed, so they didn't have to worry about getting guys on the edge. They were used to running the trap play and the belly play, and you know, they executed that pretty well all night. And you know, for us, you know, we rely on our speed a little bit, and we rely on the ability to throw the ball. And obviously, we had trouble doing both those things. Get in the corner, we didn't do very well, and we didn't throw the ball very well.
That had to be almost impossible to throw that football that
was.
night. I mean, 35 miles an hour blowing across the field and rain and snow.
It was. We were trying to manufacture some pass plays at some point in time. It just wasn't working. And, you know, like I said, we were trying to, even our sweep play, we just had trouble getting to the corner on it. So, you know, it really limited our playbook as well. It forced us to go more downhill. And, you know, Damon Belt's got a lot more carries than what he usually gets, but he's a little bit more built for that. And then Brandon's runs were a lot of stuff that was inside. You know, we really couldn't get things on the edge because of the weather and the way it was. And I still felt like, you know, we had guys up front that could move and get some movement up front where we could create some first downs and touchdowns. And we got a couple there, but there wasn't a whole lot going on in that second half.
You know, it takes me back to a few years ago when we got Evergreen on that last night.
Yeah, it's real similar to that.
Same kind of night, you know. It's the great neutralizer when you get that kind of wind, that kind of rain, and that type of field.
It is, and you know, like I said, I've played in games like that before, and I know that's one of the chances you take running a spread offense is you might run into something like that. But you know, in the past, I don't know that's given us as many problems as it gave us this last Friday night. So I continue to run the spread. Not going to change.
No, and I don't. You know, you only run into those once in a while. Those kind of nights, that miserable of a climate is just kind of tough. And it was, you had a group too at Liberty that was looking for that win. They were ready to go, and a couple things went their way. And confidence in a guy that age, man, makes
a real good argument for turf.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it, huh?
So you're starting to see more and more schools get it.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be nice if it gets out to our way. And it makes sense after you see a game like that. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, you've got the new high school coming, so maybe that'll be the next project here down. Yeah, get that going, and then we can host some games down the road after we get done with our first round game and move on in the future. You know, all in all, the year wasn't what you wanted, 6-4, but you had some really fine nights for some of your individual guys and some great seasons really for some of your guys.
We did. You know, when you look back at the year, there's two games we were pretty lucky to win. You know, so we very easily could have been 4-6, and then you know I really think there's two games that we were competitive in and had chances to win. So we could have been the other end of the spectrum. We could have been 8-2. So you know we fell right in the middle there at 6-4. A little bit disappointing with the way that we ended the season. You know, losing 3 of the last 4. Would like to have seen us compete a little bit more at the end, but. You know, overall, considering what we had to replace and you know, this group, a lot of them, it was the first time they're out there on Friday nights. You know, I know that they worked hard throughout the season, and you know, I like what they did and the effort that they gave for the most part this year.
Brandon Dean got hurt right there.
Yeah, we had a couple guys get dinged up in that game, and you know, Nate Rao was one of them, and Brandon obviously was the one on the very last play. He got hurt, and you know, he's going to be okay. He just twisted his ankle a little bit, and now he's trying to work it back into shape so he can get ready for basketball.
That's the amazing part. At this time last year, we knew he had several guys that were going to move on to a college level. I would have to believe that some of these guys have at least opportunities, maybe not in football, but even in a baseball or those kind of settings.
At this point, I don't know that any of them have committed to anything yet. I know there's some interest out there. You mentioned before, like Nate Rouse, one of those guys who likes. I know he's pretty big into baseball and is looking at some things. Derek Knisley's another one that's looking at some things. And for us, football-wise, I think Lane Azarillo's looking at possibly playing at the next level. And Zach Phillips is another one that's looking at possibly playing next level.
Sure.
But not a lot of guys, and typically that's what you get. So I think when you look at that, you think about the big picture. Everybody always talks in terms of wins and losses, but you really hope that they had a positive experience with things, and that when they get out, which a lot of them aren't going to play in college, like we said, when they get out and they look back, they have good memories of things, and they had fun and they enjoyed it, and it was a positive experience in their life, and it's something that helps them in other ways. These are just good lessons you learn in discipline and teamwork and things of that nature that can carry on in other aspects of your life.
No doubt about that, and I'll tell you, that is the thing that we lose track of when we start to look at the final score every Friday night, isn't it, huh?
Yeah, it is. And I'm as competitive as anybody, and I like to win games too. But big picture wise, this is a group that I hope learns some life lessons that they can take on with throughout the rest of their life, and that they can apply. I think football does offer you those lessons and teaches you some things and exposes some things about yourself that you can carry with you.
Man, I'll tell you what, if you just survived that Friday night at Liberty, you're a little tougher than what you were the night before, that's for sure. No doubt about that. Well, this one's in the books for this year, so we're going to take a time out. When we come back, we're going to look ahead to next year and also some of the playoff games that are going on around the area here on the final Extra Point of the year. Coach, this is the thing about high school. It's the thing about college. You can keep them around here for only 4 years, okay? At the end of 4, they get to move on. Last year you lost a bunch. This year you'll lose a bunch. But I think the positive thing, and you talked about a couple of them already, you have some underclassmen that got some good playing minutes this year, even some sophomores and some juniors, and coming back next year, the cupboard's not bare.
Yeah, we look at next year, and we haven't really thought about it too much, but you look at the number of guys that we played, and some of the guys that had limited experience, and even looking at our JV record this year and guys that got experience there, I still think that's going to be really important for us going into the next season. And you hope that we can build off the previous success that we've had here, and I think these kids are eager, even though we've only been out 2 weeks. So we get guys that are starting to come out in the weight room already and are excited, and other guys have rolled on to their next sport, but I think I still hear them talking a little bit, and they're excited about their chances and their opportunities that they're going to have next season.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole lot of fun to see how this all plays out. Obviously, as the year went on, we saw the new running back, quarterback, couple wide receivers. They're all of a sudden started to make their plays on a Friday night.
Yeah, and like I said, we're pretty excited. We saw a really natural progression that happens, and you always hope that kids elevate their level of play from one year to the next. So we had a couple kids do that nicely this season. Some of our freshman guys from a year ago who were sophomores this year really took big jumps. Blues Creek being one of them, obviously. Blues got some time on Friday night. We really like his skill sets and what he's bringing back. I think he's probably right now the odds-on favorite to take over that quarterback spot. A lot can happen between now and then, but he's one of those guys we look at and just say, boy, he can do a lot of things. And we have to fine-tune a couple other things, but we're excited about getting him back. And while he's been improving, the group of receivers around him has gotten a lot better in a year's time. So we want to see them take that next jump as well. But when you watch them play at the JV level, or even on Friday nights, we've subbed some of those guys in. They've looked pretty good, and they catch the ball well, and they run good routes, and that's really important for us. And of course, we know Belt's he's got a full year under his belt now, and Grimm, him and Grimm kind of share that spot, so that's pretty nice. Offensive line-wise will be one of our major concerns, just returning Chris up front at one of the tackle spots, and we're going to have to fill in those other guys. But one thing we have is in those younger groups of guys on the team, is we have quite a few linemen, so we just need to find out who's going to step up and fill those positions. So offensively, we feel like we're going to be able to put together a pretty solid team next year that can compete. And defensively, we've got some holes to fill, but we really like we have 2 good linebackers coming back. I think people forget about Adam Harold. Early in the season, he's a sophomore for us, really filled a void for us and was really playing well, and then he ended up breaking his femur and was out pretty early in the season. But you could argue that through the first 2 games, 3 games, he's
playing really well.
He was playing really well for us, and so we're excited about getting him back. And of course, David Rummel's another kid that we didn't know where he'd fit in at the start of the season, and played tremendous for us, throughout the year on defense. So, those 2 will probably anchor the defense for us, and then we'll find some other guys to fill in around them.
Well, it's always that next group that has to step up. It's their turn, and hopefully that's what we're started right now is a perpetuating cycle, and that's
Well, we got a lot of time, but we also have a lot of work that needs to be done.
Sure.
Looking back, I think as a coach, you evaluate yourself on a season 2, and there's some things this year I would do differently going back, and there's some things and policies and stuff that will change. We had some issues that next year we won't put up with, we won't deal with.
Sure,
and,
sure.
Just to make us a little bit more team oriented. I thought there were times this year where we kind of had some division on the team, and we can't afford to do that. We got to play together, and that's something that will change.
That's always fun. One year from the next, it's always a different year and a new challenge for you, Coach, and it should be a lot of fun. Conference is going to be really interesting next year too, because you got Wasion, who's going to lose a bunch.
Yeah, but their younger kids were really solid as well. I think Coop's done a nice job of integrating people into his program.
Let's stop for just a second, okay? Can you hear that, E? Yeah. Okay, let's open that. We'll open the door up here for him real quick. We'll get right back to it. We're getting close to wrapping this up. Somebody.
You don't know what the front door is.
Somebody's wanting in bad.
Isn't the back opened up or not?
You figured it'd be one of them Rao kids, you know what I mean?
You interrupted the interview.
Yeah. Yeah. It could have been his old man. It wouldn't have surprised me at all. That's great. All right, let's get back at it here. Coming your way in 5, 4, 3, 2. And next year, Coach, the league's going to be a little bit different. Wasion's losing a bunch of guys, but you kind of feel like there's some guys coming back on that team still.
Yeah, I think they'll be pretty solid. I think we always talk about success breeding success, and right now, you look at Coach Cooper over the last 2 years, and he's 10-0 regular season, 9-1 the season before, so he's 19-1 over the last 2 years. And so his kids have gotten used to that culture and being around it. So I think he'll fill in some of those guys that he's going to be missing just with some other kids, and they'll step up and play well. And we got some young kids, or some young teams in the league this year. Swanton probably being one of the top ones. I think they only had 5 or 6 seniors, and we always talked about that junior group that they had. I would say, it's way too early to start making predictions and stuff, but I would say they've got to be one of the teams that everybody's looking at and saying this team's going to be pretty solid next year, because they took huge jumps from last year to this year, and they're probably expecting to do the same next year. And PH is another team that played really young as well.
Yeah. Their numbers, in talking to the Swanton, we'll go back to that and then we'll get to PH and those guys, but in talking to the folks over there, their numbers all the way down the line are huge, is what they're saying. They've got a big freshman class, they've got a big 8th grade class, they've got a lot of kids in the pipeline right now. Yeah, they do. They have really good numbers. That's something that they battled before in the past, but I think they're starting to get excited about football over there, and this is the first time in, I think, since like '94 maybe, that they've been above 500. So it's been a really successful season for them, and they have a lot that they're building off of and they're excited about. You mentioned PH and Liberty. Both those guys are very young teams that'll bring most of that team back next year. Yeah.
They both end up playing young. I think PH is an example. They had a number of seniors that were kind of mixed in early on, and then I think they just said, we're going to keep these guys are going to play, and then we're going to get beat up and take some lumps this year. But we're going to play really young guys. We're going to get back to doing what we do and do it well. And they finish up 6-4 for a young program. That's pretty good. And I think Coach Kirkendall does a tremendous job with his guys. It doesn't get nearly as much recognition as some of the other people in the league, but him just coming in and being new, I think he's done a great job for his first year, and I think they have a lot to be excited about and looking forward to.
Obviously, Delta was a team that is going to bring a bunch back again. Let's kind of shift with Delta into the playoffs as well, because you made the comment a couple times that was the team that was on the bubble all year long, playing as well as what they did, and they almost didn't make the playoffs. Yeah,
and they have some key players coming back. They're probably one of the best athletes in the league, and the Storeholder kid. And then they've got Beverly too. So they got 2 really good running backs. They got their quarterback back. but they're going to miss. And then they got the Veller kid on the defensive side of things, really big player for them. So I think those things factor into them next year. The interesting thing is their younger grades, they were pretty thin in numbers, so it'll be interesting to see if they're able to get those numbers up a little bit to help those guys out. Football is pretty unique in that you've got to get, 2, 3 guys can really help you, but if you don't have numbers, it can also hurt you quite a bit.
It really does. You're right, exactly. Let's talk about the playoffs a little bit. Wasion gets through 9-7. Everything I heard, it wasn't pretty, but it was a win.
Yeah, and I think it represents your league really well anytime you get teams that move on, and I think we all knew how good Wasion was, and playoff football is always a little bit different. You get out there, and we always joke that there's no place to hide. 1 through 8, the teams that make it in are really solid, and they ran into a really good Genoa team, and at that point you're surviving in advance. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We joked about it before, but it doesn't matter if it's 9-7 or if it's 30-7. The object is to keep playing on each week, and I'm excited for them and glad for Coach Cooper over there because I know he's worked really hard and that they got that win. And it's been a while since that program's had a playoff win, so I think that's really neat for them and those kids. And we're hoping that they can keep it rolling. Yeah,
I think at this point in time, you do move on and you now root for the team that's coming out of your conference.
Absolutely.
And you would hope that they would do the same for you when your time comes back around again. The other team you played this year, Lima Central Catholic, got bumped, and that was a surprise this last week.
It was a little bit of a shock. I didn't know a lot about the team that they were playing, but I think anytime you play, like we played LCC, you kind of keep tabs on them just to see how they're doing and how they'll fare in the playoffs. And traditionally they've been a very good playoff team, but the team that knocked them out, I think it was Van Buren, isn't it? Who knocked them out? Must have be a pretty solid team. I know the league that they play in, the Blanchard Valley Conference, is a very good league. And Finley Liberty Benton, who knocked out Delta, and of course they have a Macomb team and Arlington team in there that are really solid as well in playoff teams. So Van Buren must be a pretty solid team to do what they did to LCC. Well,
it's been a fun year. It's been an interesting year all the way back from that Van Wert game, which was almost one where you thought, is this going to happen again after we came back for that one, and then all the way to the end to almost the opposite of that, which was one of the most miserable nights just physically and mentally probably all the way through for anybody to go through. And the fans that were sitting in the stands, I mean, they didn't go home, but they had to be frozen to death.
Pretty diehard fans if they're out there in that weather. So
they sure were.
I don't know, Jim, if you guys have looked ahead at the schedule. But obviously we start with Van Wert right off right out of the gates.
All right.
Both Montpelier leaving the league are now our first 3 games are all non-conference games, so we will go Van Wert, and then we'll play Tiffin Columbian, and then our 3rd game is Napoleon again. Napoleon's back on the schedule. But at the end of that schedule, week 10 is Liberty Center.
Oh no!
It's back at Liberty Center.
Really? Again?
So yes. Because it rotated, and the way it rotated, we ended up we have to go back to Liberty Center next year, and we actually have to go back to Wasion next year as well. So
man, that's going to be a killer schedule next week. Next year.
So I don't know who designed that, but
I don't know who does come up with that.
After playing Liberty Center at Liberty week 10 one year, you think that'd be enough? You think we could get them to come to our place? But the way what's going to work out is we got to go back there to finish up our schedule next year. Hopefully we have better weather. So
oh man, because it's a tough place to play anyway. Just no matter what. Because I think we played them. They were here the last 2 years. Is that correct?
No, it usually goes every other year. You go back and forth, but because our schedule rotated, they realigned everything.
And Wasion was the same way then. Both of those two realigned. It was because of that realignment. Wow.
Yeah, fun.
Oh man, what a killer! Because that is a tough schedule. Just when you look at it from top to bottom, and then you're going to have a new bunch of guys to take it on. So it's going to be a fun year.
It will be, but it's a long time. We got a while to adjust and get ready for it.
And the other side of it, Kevin, will be here just like that.
I know.
Okay. That's the other side of it. You're going to run like crazy. Well, again, congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, it's always a tough. When you go into a season like this and you're thinking, oh man, the years we've had, the last couple, and everybody's expecting another one just like that one, and it's tough to do, man. Nobody understands that as well as a football coach. It's hard, and that's why we marvel at times when you talk about some of the coaches and the successes they've had in the years and that they put these wins on. And the average person, I've always said this, if you could get the average fan out of the stands and onto a football field for just one play on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon, they would have an entirely different outlook if they've not been there, because it is so much different watching it and calling it or doing whatever you might want to do and being in the middle of those 11 guys on one side of that football field and just one play, just giving it one try, you know. It moves a lot faster.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger hunk of turf out there that you're covering and you're running to than it looks like when you're sitting on the 35 in row number 15. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I've been on both ends of that. You know, I've yelled at the TV quite a few Saturdays.
Sure, I bet you have.
Sundays,
sure.
And been like, what are we doing?
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
And you're right. You know, these kids put a lot of time and effort into it, and you know, it doesn't always work out in wins and losses.
Yep.
They still, like I said before, they get great lessons from it if they allow it to teach them things that they can carry with them for the rest of their life, and that's what you want them to see.
Fantastic. That's going to do it for this year. I thank everybody for being with us here for the Extra Point and also for all the football games. We'll talk to you next year here on the BryanSports.com.